Okay. Hi, so Sarah, we're discussing well, it wasn't the hearing that was held on Monday, and I guess overall, why don't you tell me your reaction to what happened and whether how it did or did not meet your expectations?
Yeah, well, in some ways, it met my expectations completely, in that I've been in correspondence with this new coroner since she started in August. And she's very hostile to the case. No respect for the deceased, no respect for the grieving family at all, and ready to depart from standard protocol for coroners who are only there to find the facts. They are not there to try anybody. And she wasted a lot of time during the hearing on flirting with the press. But luckily, because Maeve's dad is a national news writer, he now has a position where he can write what he wants to write.
Right, he's
He
a
wasn't
writer at large of some sort at this point, yeah?
Say again?
He's like a writer at large at some point, of some
Yeah,
sort.
yeah, yeah. He writes about what he wants. So he's like his own editor and his writer, and it's for the Times. So he's got, a high profile platform that will, and he's been doing it for 40 something years. He's very skilled, very good at writing stories, and knows the game. He's covered plenty of inquests.
Right.
So he had managed to devise a way, with some legal advice from his contacts, to wrap up a witness statement that we had in disclosure that's not supposed to be made public until the actual hearing itself. Well, we're already 3 years since Maeve died, and no date for that hearing. And he's become very impatient.
And he wrote an article about being impatient. That was
He
early.
did. He did, and that's what triggered the new coroner. Okay, I mean, I can't say that it caused it, but the new coroner came on once that was published, and she has been. Well, there's no love lost. Let's say that. She doesn't like me, and I don't like her, because we're only there to find the facts, and I am holding her to that task. She should be doing the investigating, not me, but she isn't doing any investigating at all. So what Sean did, though, which was the surprise, when you were asking me, what happened that was a surprise that wasn't a surprise, she was not a surprise, unfortunately. She was as bad as I was expecting her to be, so I was dreading it. But I also hoped that she might be, that I had, that it become out of proportion in my imagination, that she'd turn out to be okay. She wasn't okay. She was not okay. She is not okay. But Sean was very clever, I think, in that he got one of his colleagues who covers the whole, from the Times, who covers the whole of the Southwest Peninsula. And he's the countryside correspondent as well. So he wouldn't normally do an inquest unless it was of significance. Well, it's only of significance because Sean's involved,
Right.
because there's inquests all the time, and the coroner wasted a huge amount of time describing to them, for their benefit, how many inquests there are and how long they last. And it's like, this is completely irrelevant to this case. This is all you having a dialogue with my ex-husband, Maeve's dad. So, but Sean kind of, he's very skilled, and he's good at getting people to say things that they don't necessarily intend to say. So she carried on talking, and then he made a statement, which by which stage she was lulled into, I don't know. I mean, maybe she did know that she was
That,
letting him air it, but he made this witness statement public, which would not have been allowed in any other way.
well,
And
and
he
that's,
wrapped.
I think that's significant because I think one of the things that the article did, and the headline says, is that basically points to the fact that there's a systemic problem, that this isn't just
Absolutely.
death, and I think that was a good statement to get into the record now, as opposed to whenever the inquest, probably, at least for the publicity's sake, at least the headline was quite striking, I thought.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's even more in it, you know, and I thought he wrote it beautifully. His statement was beautifully written. And so his colleague reported it almost verbatim, you know, like that was what Sean said, and that was all that got reported, you know, which considering, you know, you're a journalist, so you know there's a certain amount of space you can fill.
Right.
There wouldn't have been room for any more. So it was very, very well tailored to fit that space.
What
So
happened?
that leaves me now thinking, okay, how much more actually are we going to get out of this inquest? Because I'm not doing the inquest out of any sense of, I mean, what does justice for a dead person mean? It means nothing. Nothing is going to bring Maeve back to life. I'm not there for Maeve. I'm there for all the other people with ME, especially those with severe and very severe ME who have been so abandoned, and all of their families so abandoned. They all go through exactly what we went through. And now with long COVID, the numbers are growing. So I went on from that inquest to the public inquiry, which has opened here into the pandemic, the COVID inquiry. And I wasn't expecting to meet a room full of people who all had long COVID, who all needed and wanted to bear witness to the medical neglect of long COVID. But that's what I found. So I'd just gone from one inquest where the coroner's trying to shut me down and stop this discussion being about the negligence, historic negligence of post-infection diseases, and the willful policy of the NHS, which in England and, you know, the whole of the United Kingdom, the NHS dominates the medical system completely. If you can't get treatment on the NHS, you will very, 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 very likely have to leave the country to find it. Well, if you're as poorly as Maeve was, that is not an option. And if the NHS has a policy to withhold treatment, which in effect it does, because there is no policy, according to the medical director of the hospital where Maeve should have been treated, he has learned, and he is my hero of the hour because he's been prepared to say and try and make the effort to, for the sake of the inquest, you know, the question that he was asked to answer is, what are the policies in place in your hospital? And he has had to write to say there aren't any, and there can't be any, because we are not commissioned to provide this service. If we're not commissioned by NHS UK, we cannot do it. Our hands are tied. And that's what people encounter everywhere throughout the UK. If they've got ME and they go into hospital, everyone they meet will try to treat them according to the protocols available, and there are none for ME. And this is I can't describe, I hope you can hear it in my tone of voice, I cannot describe to you how thankful I am that he has had the courage to be outspoken and say it, because we know from experience that's what happens. And he is on the other side of that line saying, I see you, you know, like, I know you, I can't treat you. My clinicians cannot treat you. My hospital cannot treat you. It cannot provide you with the care you need. It's absolutely fantastic, David. And I couldn't be more pleased.
Was he the same one there at the time of Maeve's death? One question.
He
And
was.
the other,
Yeah,
the other is, okay, so that's now that he said that out and on the record and in, you know, the prestigious Times. So basically it can't be unsaid. So, you know, from your perspective, that's a good thing. And that, I mean, is that the extent of what you would like from the inquest, actually?
There's another aspect, which I'm still thinking about, really, because this is why, no, I can't say this with real confidence. I don't know for sure, but my experience is that the coroners from the very beginning have not wanted the local authority, so that's local government, to be listed as an interested party. I have to remind them that they neglected their duty to protect Maeve from the death that she met, which is a statutory duty. And they absolutely 100% failed in that duty.
And
not only did they fail in that duty, they did not investigate their failure, which they are also duty bound to do. So
that's the social service agencies of the county as opposed to the NHS unit.
That's right. Yeah. So that's local delivery of national policy. In the same way with the NHS, we have local delivery of national policy, but the NHS is an institution separate from government.
Right. Okay.
Whereas the social services are directly accountable to government. There's no separation.
But what makes you think, but one of the things you said, what makes you say that she wants to sort of shut the whole thing down?
Because she kept trying to shut me up. And she told me, I mean, she had a very long agenda for what's meant to be a business meeting. So maybe I should explain a little bit about inquests. An inquest is a fact-finding exercise. Any other kind of legal action, criminal or civil litigation, is pursued separately from the inquest. The inquest finds the facts. Having found the facts, then other actions can follow. It doesn't have to do anything else. It's not a trial.
Right.
Okay, so anybody, and the duty of everybody called to an inquest is to assist the coroner in finding those facts. This coroner is not interested in finding facts. I don't really know what her interest is, apart from every time it was my turn to speak, she tried to silence me or diminish what I had to say. She treated me as if I was prosecuting counsel. I'm a grieving parent. All of the people present, with the exception of Sean, because he is also a grieving parent, they are all making their living out of other people dying, right? But there was no respect for the person who died shown by her before the inquest or during. She made a very brief nod because there were 93 people watching in the public gallery, through the video link. 93 people were watching this. She knew she was being watched. And so that modified a bit of her behavior, but only marginally. By the end of it, I was packing up to leave because she was still lecturing me on what an inquest was. I know what an inquest is, and I'm only there to assist her. And yet she was trying to tell me that she hadn't had documentation from me that I had supplied over a year ago. I know she's got it. She knows that I know that she's got it. And the inaccuracies in her letter that she drafted to her choice of expert witness were unbelievably extensive. There were, I can't remember exactly how many paragraphs, maybe 12 or 14 paragraphs about the medical and family history of the deceased person, and every single one had factual inaccuracies in it. It was like a fiction that somebody had written about my daughter who died.
That was the letter to Alistair Miller, who she was going to bring in as
the expert witness. That was her choice of expert witness, and she was so fluffed up. I have found this expert. I've only just been assigned to the case, but I've already identified this person who is willing to be. And it's like, no. He is not an expert. He has not published ever on ME. He has published extensively on chronic fatigue syndrome and PACE and GET. That is what is making people with ME even more unwell. You need to catch up. And her other ploy, which just makes me laugh, is that she keeps saying, well, the NICE guideline hadn't been published. And it's like, you obviously don't know how NICE works then. It had been published, and people who were caring for Maeve were using it. And that's in the record. And I know it's in the record because I've read it, and I'm the grieving parent. And I'm the one.
The new NICE guidelines, which were published the same month, essentially, that were formally published in their final form the month that Maeve died.
Absolutely. But in their draft form, they were published the year before.
Right.
And so everybody who was working with Maeve in the community, in the NHS, because that's all we have, it's a monolith, right? We don't have, you cannot. So I was looking for people privately, and there was nobody who I could go to treat Maeve privately, because they are all in the NHS. The hospital provision is all NHS provision. You cannot get a tube sited without going into hospital. You can be discharged home with a tube if you need tube feeding, but you have to go into hospital. The only hospital that does it is an NHS hospital, and that's what Professor Helmsley says in his statement. We can't do this. We can't offer the nursing care. And not only can we not do it, but there is not a single place in the whole of the NHS throughout the United Kingdom that offers this provision. There is no provision. And that he has said that. We knew that already.
Sarah,
Which is why, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, just to, what is the final then disposition? So she'll make a decision about the Article 2 issue, and then when will the inquest actually take place? Next year sometime?
Well, she says that we're going to have the next pre-inquest hearing in January, and that the inquest proper will be over 2 full weeks between March, but I think the 2 weeks will be together sometime between May and September. But the last coroner, who was the chief coroner, said very similar things. He thought that the inquest would last between 3 days and a week, and that we would have the next meeting in January. And it took 26 months to get to the next meeting, which is the one that we've just had. And that the full inquest, the 3 days to a week, would have completed by the end of March this year. We're now almost in December, and we still have not got a witness list completed.
Well, you're not completely hopeful at this point that that schedule will be stuck to.
Well, I honestly do not know why they have taken so long to get to where we are now. And according to the assistant coroner who is responsible now for the management of this case, this is not a particularly big case for them. They have much more complicated and much longer cases than this, but they are fully booked up now until May at the earliest. And everything depends upon the availability of barristers. So
I see.
there
Okay.
you go.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I'm gonna stop the recording right now, but why don't you stay on for a bit?